Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
Don't you understand, George? It's because you were not born.
Film church.
Well, a boy's best friend is his mother.
Dawn was always a sacred time for prayers. They called the sun grandfather, the moon mother, fire father. They call it the flower moon when tiny flowers spread over the blackjack hills and the prairies, and many, so many. It's as if Wa Kon Ta looked upon the earth, smiled, and sprinkled it with sugar candy.
Hello, and welcome to Film Church Radio. This is the podcast that treats cinema as a religion. It's Sunday, I'm Brandon.
I'm Lewis.
And we're here to talk about movies. Each week, Lewis and I alternate picking a film for us both to watch and discuss, and this week I picked Killers of the Flower Moon from this year, which is currently in cinemas and soon to be streaming on Apple TV Plus. Is it Apple TV Plus? Or just Apple TV? It's Apple.
Yeah. I think it's one of...
You know what we're talking about. This film is directed by Martin Scorsese, starring Lily Gladstone, Robert De Niro, and Leonardo DiCaprio. Yeah, cinema, it's our religion. What does that mean? It means that we go to sacred, holy cinemas and worship films. It means that we expand our minds with studying film, trying to understand what we consider sacred texts of cinema. We study the gods of cinema, and Martin Scorsese is one of the gods of cinema. Put a stamp on cinema history, revived cinema history time and time again, done a lot of his own preaching in terms of trying to get old films back into the public and restoring them and making sure they're preserved. So, of course, Killers of the Flower Moon was going to be a watch for us. We didn't necessarily, hadn't even talked about picking Killers of the Flower Moon for an episode of Film Church. We had just, both gone to see it. And after the 100th episode, I was like, I don't know what to pick next. And I knew we had both seen Killers of the Flower Moon. We hadn't talked about it yet. So I was just like, let's go there. Are you glad that we're going there?
I'm glad. Yeah. Any reason to talk about Scorsese is, thumbs up from me.
Sweet. So we're going to get into it here in a bit in our featured presentation sermon section. That's coming up. But first, we want to say thanks to everybody who participated in our 100th episode last week. Love you guys. Really appreciate y'all sending in your audio clips and telling us your favorite horror films. Last month was all Darnish Horror Month, so we had 5 Sundays last month. We got to do 5 horror films, so go check those out. And thanks to everybody else. If you want to send in questions or anything, please do. You can find us on social media. You can send us a DM. Send us an audio clip if you want. Whatever it is, whatever way you like to communicate. You can communicate through prayer, through whatever. And we're on Film Church Radio on all the social medias. You can go to filmchurchradio.com, and that's where you can find our podcast page. And we also have merch, finally, so you can get a cool snapback hat, a hoodie, a mug, a shirt. So you can get you some swag if you want to. Links to everything in the show notes below. And yeah, now it's time for our trailers, aka hymns. It is kind of funny how it works like that. Like, you don't think about the parallels between, you know, if you're just a casual moviegoer or even a super moviegoer, like,
Yeah.
there's so many parallels between going to the cinema and going to church. Is kind of funny, including the like build up to the movie.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
popcorn and soda. There's your communion. You know? And if you're going with a big family, you're passing it around. You know,
Yeah.
passing around. the
Telling
plate.
other people in the cinema to be quiet is the peace be with you part.
Exactly. So yeah, so this is the section where Lewis and I will talk about other movies we've been watching this week, other than our main feature. But we do have a question sent in from Andy. So you want to get into the question first?
Yeah. Let's do the question
Cool.
first.
Andy sent us an email. He says, Father Lewis and Father Brandon, I was listening to your Psycho episode, and the conversation around Vince Vaughn playing Norman Bates in the 1998 remake particularly piqued my interest. As a huge horror movie fan, I've seen a trend of famous actors/actresses getting a career start in horror movies. For example, Paul Rudd in Halloween 6, Jennifer Aniston in Leprechaun, Johnny Depp in Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm curious your thoughts on this trend. If you've ever seen any of these odd pairings, that if you have a favorite she was in that movie moment. Congrats on 100 episodes. Amen.
Awesome. Thank you, Andy.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for sending that in.
Yeah.
So I feel like you got a couple of good picks probably.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the trend, I think it's to do with the budgets and the fact that, you know, the focus is more on the horror element than the people in it. You know, a lot of the people that I kind of are aware of from horror movies come from slashers, and I think it's just because they need so many people that are disposable. So they hire like young, you know, people that give the start. That's why we see, you know, Johnny Depp in Nightmare on Elm Street and stuff like that, because it's not really a vehicle for any of the cast. It's more for the franchise. But yeah, I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween is always like the big one. I know that's the most obvious as well. That was like her breakthrough, kind of following in her mother's footsteps, which was really nice, and has gone on to have an amazing career. The two that came to mind, especially around horror movies, the first is Kevin Bacon in Friday the 13th, which is really cool. I mean, I think it was like his second on-screen
Is
movie.
it the first one?
It is, from 1980, yeah. Plays one of the camp counselors. Gets one of the best deaths as well, spoiler, which is really good. He gets like an arrow through the neck, which is cool. And then the second is, have you ever seen I Know What You Did Last Summer? The 90s.
I know what you're talking about, but
yeah,
I always remember that cover from the video store.
Yeah, they're pretty. I mean, they're fine. They're pretty good. It's not, you know, it's not the worst movie ever made. I can remember watching them a lot when I was a kid. And in the second one, Jack Black's in it as like a hippie guy with dreads. Because they go to like this Caribbean island and they're stuck there, and he's like he's working on the island.
Yeah.
And he's like uncredited. He's not in the credits or anything. And it was like 98, so just when he was starting to kind of break through.
Yeah.
But it's very like every time I watch, I'm like, that's Jack Black.
Yeah, there he is.
I say like I watch it every week. I don't watch it every week. I watch it like pretty infrequently, but Jack Black's in it and he's got dreads and it's interesting.
Yeah, Jack Black is also in a deleted scene on True Romance.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. He's like not even in the actual movie, but if you watch the deleted scenes, he is one of the guys who works at the cinema, and he is standing in the back, and he's like, you can't really even see his face because he's like silhouetted, and I think he tells him to be quiet or something. And
yeah.
It's kind of funny. And that was even earlier, I think,
Yeah.
like early 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I haven't seen it, but I know Matthew McConaughey is in like the Texas Chainsaw Next Generation or whatever.
Mm,
I don't know if you've seen that,
I haven't
but
seen
he
it.
plays the killer in that one.
Yeah. Okay.
And it makes sense. Like it just makes it. It was like one of his first roles, but it's kind of funny that
Yeah.
I mean I think Matthew McConaughey is kind of you think of Texas when you think of him, so it's funny
Yeah.
that he's like one of his first things was a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie.
Yeah.
And then one that I think is always not necessarily funny, but just interesting is Ryan. This isn't a horror movie, but Ryan Gosling and Remember the Titans.
Mm.
He just it's like a smaller role in that movie,
Yeah.
but that I just remember seeing him when I was a kid going to see that movie because I feel like that was a huge movie when that
Yeah.
came out. That was also the first thing I saw Denzel Washington in, I think, as a kid.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, I just remember Ryan Gosling like really sticking out to me. I think because
Yeah.
I thought he was the kid from like the older brother from Old Yeller.
Mm-hmm.
They at that age like they looked so much alike to me that I just thought that was him, and I was like, how is he still
Yeah.
young?
Going.
I was so confused. I was like, is that movie not that old? He's also in that same actor is in the Swiss Family Robinson. So there's a couple of movies that I've seen him in, but I always thought that Ryan Gosling was that guy. I'm sorry, I can't remember his name, but you guys know who I'm talking about. So yeah, that's my pick.
The other weird one that just came to me is that the remake of Last House on the Left has Aaron Paul in it from Breaking Bad.
Ah.
And he plays like the kind of the weak one of the gang.
Yeah.
I don't want to say too much because it's very explicit, but that came out I think in 2009 and Breaking Bad was like 2008.
Yeah.
So he had kind of obviously booked that and filmed it before getting big on Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
And because I don't think he's like front and center, he's like 7th build or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's that weird film where it came out just as he was making it big.
Yeah.
And like if it had been, a year later, he would have probably either not done it or been like top build.
It was weird because I think Breaking Bad actually didn't really take off until season 3 or 4 because it didn't really. I mean, the people who had been watching it knew how good it was. But it didn't really go viral, I think, until they started putting it on Netflix, which they were already like 3 seasons in. And then it was just, that's the crazy thing about hearing about that show is like 3 or 4 seasons in, they're still like just making a regular TV show.
Yeah.
Like their fame hadn't like just skyrocketed yet. But yeah, another one is like Chris Hemsworth in Cabin in the Woods. Because that movie, I can't remember what exactly happened with the production of it, but it didn't get released until a couple of years after they had filmed it, maybe even 3 years after. It just kind of was in limbo for a while. So he had filmed it before he had done Thor and stuff. And then by the time it finally came out, he was already
megastar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And that movie did really well. But yeah.
Yeah.
Cool stuff.
Yeah. It's a good hunting ground for new and upcoming talent is horror movies.
Yeah, exactly.
Never know who's going to make it big.
Goodwill hunting ground. So, thanks, Andy.
Yeah.
What else have you been watching?
A couple of things. I've been going through quite a few, so I'm going to save them for like the upcoming weeks because I don't know. My film watching kind of goes all over the place. I don't know how often I get to kind of sit down and watch like a lot.
Yeah.
So these are from a few weeks ago, but I watched I Know Where I'm Going, which is a Powell and Pressburger film.
Okay.
Which seemed to be kind of the in filmmaking duo at the moment. There's like a huge retrospective here in England at the BFI, and it's going out to like local cinemas as well, which is really cool. So it's one I've never seen, so I decided to go and see it from 1945, and it's just a story about a woman who's going to a remote island to get married, and all through her life she's been very steadfast that she knows exactly what she wants, and this is kind of it. And she gets kind of held up in a house due to a storm, and then meets somebody else, and yeah. I just love the worlds that Powell and Pressburger create. You just want to play in them. They're so like the sets are really cool, and like there's always a lot going on. It's not like, I don't know, minimalist. It's, there's a lot to look at, and the characters are really interesting too. Like in this, they had like an old castle that was like derelict and stuff, but there were quite a few scenes in there, and I was like, this is just really cool. And it's great. I mean, I think that everything that they did has something in there that's really interesting, and it makes a lot of sense. They go on and do, like the Red Shoes and Tales of Hoffman, which are like these films based around ballet. It's like watching in a way. It's not what's said isn't important. It's kind of like watching what they're doing.
Yeah.
Which kind of bleeds over from silent film, which is why I like silent film so much, is because everything has to be on the screen. And they're like a good gateway into that kind of stuff, I think. So I really enjoyed it. Gave it 4 out of 5. I'm hoping that because it was a new restoration of the film, I'm hoping that there'll be some physical media, maybe on Criterion, that will follow pretty soon. That'll be quite nice.
Yeah.
'Cause it's a good film. People should see it.
Sure.
And then I watched The Breakfast Club for the first time. I'd never seen it before.
First time ever. Wow.
Yeah, never seen it before. Was never really that interested in it. Chelsea was like, we've got to watch Breakfast Club. And it's really good. It's obviously of its time. It's like, there's a few things in there now that are a bit cringeworthy. Like, sexual harassment.
Yeah.
And jokes around suicide and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, the characters are really good. I like that they're all a little bit, different, but not in like stereotypical ways. There's a lot of things in there that are kind of different to what you would expect. And for a film that's just 5 characters kind of sitting in a room talking, it just flies by. The conversations are all really good. And yeah, it's a good film. I'm surprised that I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to showing it to my daughter when she's like 15.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think that's like the perfect age to have watched it.
Yeah, for sure.
But
do you think that, like sexual harassment and jokes around suicide, that's a pretty teenager-y thing anyway, though?
I think that the way that it's depicted, I mean, I didn't mind like them. They flirt a lot with Molly Ringwald, but there's one scene where one of the characters is like hiding under the table, and he like starts to put his face in between her legs.
Yeah.
And I was a bit like, at the time, I can imagine, people laughing in the cinema like, oh, he's so forward. And now it's like, oh dear.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the Brian at the end talks about like how he doesn't do very well, and he had a gun in his locker. And, we all know what schools and guns don't mix.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So at that point now is a bit, and then make a joke out of it. It's like, oh, but I bought a flare gun. I couldn't even get that right. And everyone's like, ha ha ha.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh, ugh.
Yeah. Now there's
thinking about guns in schools. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like an epidemic now.
But that's the that's the thing. It's just like, it's of its time. It's not trying to speak to me and my generation.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not the target audience anymore, but you got to just put it in the time period it's created and appreciate it for that.
Yeah.
We can't censor him because that's not what the filmmakers intended,
Yeah.
So, but we've had this conversation before about you just have to be aware of it. You don't have to dislike something because of what it's saying in the past. You just have to be aware that, hey, that's not in line with my views, but it shouldn't affect my, outlook.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah,
Cool.
But that was it. There'll be a few more, obviously. There's more, but we've talked for a while already, so
Yeah.
I don't want to hold up too much time. What have you been watching?
Yeah. I watched a couple of things. I have watched more, but I'll probably save a few more for next week. But one was Winter Light from 1963. Ingmar Bergman
Cool.
movie, I believe.
Yeah.
I ended up watching it. Well, I didn't watch it all the way through in one sitting because for some reason I've been waking up like at 4:00 in the morning, and then it takes me a couple hours to go back to sleep. So sometimes I'll just be like, I'm gonna start a movie.
Yeah.
So I started it one of those mornings and then finished it later in the day. And it was good. I mean, I gave it 3.5 out of 5. I'm sure it's much better than I'm giving it credit for. It is a very interesting film about a priest and him battling with like his faith and stuff. So right up your alley.
Yeah.
I ended up watching it because of a Reddit group called Homeschool Recovery that I get on every once in a while, and it's a bunch of homeschool kids like talking about. Well, it some of it is current homeschoolers, and some of it is like people my age, giving like encouragement to people. Because it's a lot of people just like struggling with like isolation and with, trying to get out in the world for the first time and, just not knowing how to do much, not really having any life skills. And, so it's a lot of people venting and then a lot of people giving encouragement. Some of it is people telling them to call the police. Like, it's all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
But someone made a post like, hey, do you have any like who has movie recommendations?
Hey,
to kind of to relate to, and this was one of the many that someone posted. And I was like that sounds interesting, like, because I've seen a few Bergman films, and I hadn't seen this one, so I was like, definitely gonna check this out. It's got the same actor that's in The Seventh Seal, plays one of the characters, and anyway, I would like to watch it again, but it was I think a lot of it just went over my head. For one, I wasn't. I mean, I was watching half of it at 4:00 in the morning, and then went back to it later in the day. But didn't quite impact me as much as I was kind of hoping. So,
because I saw that you had seen it, and I'd kind of clicked on it because I knew of it, and it is already on my watch list. So there must have been a point in time where I had seen it and thought, yep, that sounds like something I want to watch, and then
exactly,
not got around to it yet. So
yeah,
I'll have to find the time, because that does sound exactly what I like from cinema.
Yeah, and it always depends on what mood I'm in too, because like sometimes, because it's definitely more of a character study, and it's not exactly a person to look up to, I think. So I don't know. Sometimes like that's what I want, and sometimes I just want like some hope.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So,
goes back to Chelsea's like, what did we come out of? When we came out of one film, and she was like, "Oh, that was depressing. I bet you loved it."
Yeah,
that's what I did.
It's probably Killers of the Flower Moon.
It might have been Killers of the Flower Moon. Yeah, it might have been, because it was something quite recently.
Yeah. And then I also went and saw The Creator from this year.
Sweet.
The new Gareth Edwards film.
Yeah.
That's his name, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he did Rogue One, amongst other things.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I went to see it, because I I don't know. It is still difficult to get to cinemas to see things, and the film hadn't been doing that well. So, definitely one of the most beautifully and interestingly shot films of the year.
Yeah.
It was shot on a Sony FX3, which is kind of one of the go-to low budget cameras right now. I've been wanting to get one since it came out. It's only like, I think it's like a $4,000 camera.
That's cool.
But and it's super compact. Like it looks like just a point and shoot camera, but it's like, it has all of these features that you don't normally get in a camera that small. For one thing, it shoots really, really low light. It's got a very sensitive sensor in terms of being able to capture things just at night with like a street light, and that's it.
Yeah.
So that's super cool. I think it's the same cinematographer that shot Batman, the Batman movie, with Robert Pattinson, which Roger Deakins last year was like, that was the best shot film of the year, in my opinion, was the Batman.
Wow. Yeah.
So, definitely worth it to go see it just for its looks.
Yeah.
I mean, it is an original film,
Okay. Yeah.
which we don't get a lot of.
No,
I mean,
exactly.
especially like big budget sci-fi action movies. That's an original that's not already based on like an established franchise or whatever.
Yeah.
It's got
That happens.
Yeah, John David Washington is really good in it. Everybody's really good in it.
Yeah.
But I like John David Washington and everything. It seems like his career hasn't really. I mean, he's working obviously, but he hasn't had any big hitters since his first thing, which was Black Klansman, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been working with amazing people.
Yeah.
And he worked with Nolan and stuff already. So, the reason it's 3.5 out of 5, I think, is just because it is a little tropey. It's like, even though it's original and creative and inventive and stuff, it still has like this ending that's very similar to a lot of other sci-fi action movies. And it's like, if I'm going to see an original, I don't need all of those things, but at the same time, maybe that's what he had to do to sell the movie.
Yeah.
To get the movie made, was like to convince the studio that was what was going to sell the movie.
Yeah.
So it wasn't as good as I wanted it to be, but it's that I don't want to discourage people from going to see it. It's definitely a good time. I'm probably going to watch it again.
Nice.
It's got a lot of really fun, cool things in it. And it's probably more of like if I was like 15, 16 when I saw this, I would like love it. You know what I mean? I think it's just as I'm getting older, I just don't need the hero's journey anymore.
Yeah.
As much. I don't know. But The Creator, go see it.
Yeah.
I'm really convincing you guys.
I have been really tempted by it. I must admit, I keep seeing it kind of instant. I think it's probably like on its last week or whatever now. But hey, if there's a showing, I might try and get to it.
Yeah. Cool. Well, you ready for the next thing?
I'm ready.
All right, y'all. It is time for our feature presentation. Killers of the Flower Moon 2023 When oil is discovered in 1920s Oklahoma under Osage Nation land, the Osage people are murdered one by one until the FBI steps in to unravel the mystery. Yeah, that's what the movie's about.
Yeah.
It's not much of a mystery,
No.
but you know,
Well, there's some elements to it. I think,
Yeah.
you know, there's some part of like, we'll let the audience connect the dots.
yeah, for sure, because there's a lot of things not being said in the film. There's a lot of dialogue with like double meaning, which is
Yes.
cool.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, what was your expectation going into this film? Like obviously, I'm sure you've been anticipating it as much as I have throughout the year.
Yes. Yeah.
So-
I mean, I think this has been the one I've been looking forward to the most, maybe this year, in terms of film. I mean, any Scorsese film ever is a cause for celebration. And this year we have been blessed. I mean, not only have we had like this in the cinema, but Criterion they've put out After Hours on 4K, and Mean Streets is coming soon on 4K as well. It's just like, yes, please, more of this. You know, more. I think we've talked about him quite a lot. I mean, in relation to Joanna Hogg, I think we mentioned him quite a bit because
Yeah.
of his like collaboration with her and stuff. He is the old guard that still make him masterpiece after masterpiece.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't want to kind of lump him all in together. I mean, Spielberg is wonderful, and I think that Fabelmans was my film, you know, one of my films of last year. But he is a bit hit and miss. There's some things that don't work, whereas I think for Scorsese, it's been like hit after hit.
Yeah.
You know, there's not many weak links in his filmography. Even Silence, which wasn't that wildly seen or enjoyed, I don't think, is very, very like moving and poignant and kind of, you know, when you look at him as a director, it's, you know, it works in his filmography.
Yeah.
But yeah, Killers of the Flower Moon was the one I was looking forward to, and I think it helps that DiCaprio and De Niro are in it as well. Because, you know, just seeing him work with two of the best actors of our, you know, ever,
Yeah.
it's always another cause for celebration. Were you kind of like looking out for tickets too? Like, were you kind of...
No, I mean, I wasn't exactly. I was highly anticipating the movie, but
yeah.
I just hadn't, you know, it was kind of more in the back of my mind, like, I can't wait till this comes out. And then before I knew it, it was like, oh, like tickets are already being sold. So I didn't get
Yeah.
tickets until like maybe the Monday or Tuesday before it was released. And then got tickets for Friday night. But yeah, I mean, I was, you know, I was very determined to like, okay, I need to go see this like opening day.
Mm-hmm.
And I was pretty excited about it, and I you know, made sure to text everybody who wanted to go, and you know, I was planning on going either way, so I was like, I'm going, so who
Yeah.
wants to go, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And then I got tickets and stuff, and then I might have even have gone. No, I think it was a Friday. I'm trying to even remember what day it was. It was either Thursday or Friday. But anyway, I was pretty excited, and Sarah was like, so what's the movie about? And I was like, genocide? So, you know, I was kind of this weird thing of being like, you know, even before I saw the movie, it's like, why am I so excited to go see a movie about genocide right now?
Yeah.
But yeah, and then it's like, you know, I go and see the movie, and it's very dense, very long, very you know, not exactly, I mean, it was what I was expecting, but also not exactly, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot which is good, I think, because it's making me think a lot more about it. Because other films of Scorsese's, he does kind of, I think, go back and forth sometimes between, I mean, even his action movies and more like high-paced films, they're poignant.
Yeah.
But there's also kind of this, like, just entertainment part of them. Just good entertainment, Obviously, they do deal, a lot of his films deal with morality and bad people, immoral characters, or just people with bad intentions. Goodfellas. It's a entertaining, fun movie to watch, but it's about some terrible people. Wolf of Wall Street, it's about some terrible people, but it's very entertaining the entire time to watch and unfold. Killers of the Flower Moon is like, it's just gets deeper and deeper into this, like, sorrow and sadness and uncomfortable existence of these people. And it's got elements of, I just kept, as the movie went on, I just, like, kept getting more and more annoyed, I guess is maybe the best way to put it, with Robert De Niro and Leonardo DiCaprio. The performances are great, but just in terms of their characters, I was just like, I'm just ready for these guys to meet their demise. Like, especially when it got to the scene, where they're finally interrogating DiCaprio, and there's these long scenes of him talking with them, and the acting is good, but it's like, I think in anything else I would have been like, normally I enjoy that stuff, like I enjoy when actors get weird and go over the top, but at this point I was just like, can we just watch like something, like, why do we need this long scene with Leonardo DiCaprio just like, acting? I don't know. It didn't, to me, it didn't feel like it was benefiting the story, which I think it was probably, but I'm just kind of giving you my experience of watching it the first time. And then so leaving the theater, I wasn't sure quite what to make of the movie, because I felt like, okay, well, I felt like we needed more of Lily Gladstone. That's just how I felt leaving, but I think that's intentional. I think that you're supposed to leave wanting more for her. For the character of Molly. Like, so I'll look up this, somebody wrote something about the film that I thought put it in a completely different perspective for me. Because I guess that what I'm saying is, like, leaving the theater, I'm like, why was Leonardo DiCaprio's character the main character and not Molly?
Well, I mean, there's things I've read about it, before and after. And Scorsese said that the original script was more focused on the white characters, and he had to rewrite it to incorporate the Osage people's view on it, and I don't think, I came out of it with that in mind, thinking I still feel like we were watching it through a white man's eyes. Not in, like, it wasn't like, I don't want that to sound like we were rooting for them, but
Right.
the focus was on their characters.
Yeah,
And I don't know
exactly.
whether that's because of the bankable stars that are playing those characters, or if that's just because Scorsese has worked with them before and he can, like, you know, that's his view. You know,
Yeah,
he's-
and that's who he can get something
Yeah.
out of.
yeah,
I think it's maybe a little bit of that, but yeah, I mean the book apparently is highly focused on the Jesse Plemons character, the FBI agent Tom White, who the perspective is from his perspective, I think, and like you know, uncovering the mystery, and it's kind of like an FBI procedural.
yeah, because he
that's
could
the
have been the knight in shining armor,
Yeah.
riding in to solve the case.
And that's
And
actually what the script was before, and that's the character that Leonardo DiCaprio was going to play.
Mm.
And then Scorsese had been spending time with descendants of the Burkharts and the Osage people, and one of the, I guess, granddaughters or descendants of the Burkharts was like, remember, like she told him, I guess this is, you know, I'm paraphrasing from watching an interview with Scorsese. Basically said, like, just remember that Ernest and Molly were in love. And that kind of stuck with him. And then DiCaprio was struggling with, like, trying to figure out the character and trying to figure out the movie, and came to Scorsese and was like, well, where's the heart of the movie?
Yeah.
And Scorsese was like, well, it's the love between Ernest and Molly. And he's like, okay, well, maybe I should play Ernest. And so they just, like, flipped the script upside down and changed it completely to not be about uncovering the mystery or whatever. It's like completely different story that focuses more on them. And also just, like, hearing, like, listening to more of the interview, it's like, it's interesting. Something that Scorsese says is, like, in the film, love is used as a weapon. And I think that is, like, the part of the story that is hard to reconcile with, is knowing that love can be used as a weapon. I mean, I think that's something that we as humans know, but it's potentially one of the hardest things to admit and to accept and to navigate.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure, I mean, most people will have experienced some kind of betrayal, you know, by someone that they love, you know, whether it be, and I'm not even talking about even just sexual love, like someone cheating on you, but it could be like, you know, having a best friend that you care a lot about that doesn't seem to feel the same way, or I don't know, just like, you know, lots of people, you know, there's business betrayals, there's, you know, there's all kinds of stuff, but like, you know, there's, Molly calls Ernest throughout the movie, she calls him a coyote, and that's like her nickname for him. And I think that could, I mean, I've definitely met coyotes, you know what I mean? Like, you've met people who use their charm and love to manipulate other people into doing what they want. But it's potentially like a trait that's in all of us, you know, that we could, you know, we potentially have the power to do the same thing. Whether we want to admit it or not, it just depends on if that's the path we take or whatever.
Yeah.
This tweet from Kyle, Alex, Brett, I don't know who this person is. I just saw this tweet randomly through discussions on Twitter. It's at KYALBR. Said, if you told killers from the Osage perspective, the non-Osage audience would directly identify with them. By keeping Burkhart as the protagonist, Scorsese prevents this. When using the old Cowboys versus Indian structure, Scorsese indicts us to show who the actual savages are. So that kind of put it in a different perspective for me, because I was like, oh, well, yeah, of course, like, especially in today's age where I think there's a lot of white people who want to be on the good side of history and want to be supportive of indigenous people and Black Lives Matter and say that they want they don't want this history to be erased, and they want to reconcile with their past, with our past as a nation. But I feel like that only goes so far sometimes, because at the same time they don't want to be the bad guy, know. And I think this movie, at least watching it as a white person, makes you the bad guy, and it makes you go, like, this is where we came from. And I especially was thinking about this because, like, I have family from Oklahoma. Like one side of my entire family is all from Oklahoma. The other side is from Louisiana, and then that's how. I mean, Texas is just right in between the two, right? So that's like where I'm from is from Texas, but one side of my entire family is all from Oklahoma, and I still have distant relatives there and stuff. And a lot of I've heard, I haven't done my own research, but I've heard through my life that, like, we have indigenous people in our bloodline, and it's always kind of talked about as like a point of pride, or like, that there's, like, I don't know, something more spiritual about us or something because of that. But I think that should be looked at more of I don't want to. I was gonna say shame, but I shouldn't say shame. But we should. I don't know. It's like this movie had me thinking. Well, like, there's probably a lot of ugliness in that ancestral past. It might not be.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like nobody in my family looks indigenous, so it's like, is that even true, or did we rape a bunch of people and murder a bunch of people?
Yeah.
So it's just got me. It's just a lot to think about, I think, in terms of the perspective of this country, not only of, like, just family and whatever, but the film also, I think, represents America in a lot of ways. And, what does it mean to be proud to be an American? Should you really be proud? Because it's a country of murder and genocide and slavery. Like, that's what it was built on, So, yeah, I think this is a very, very important film, and there's a reason that, that feeling of sorrow and disgust just builds and builds and builds to the end. And there is a little bit of hope at the end, you know, not necessarily for Molly, but for the indigenous people that are still out there, and the Osage that are still out there, and the next generation of people that are still here, you know.
Yeah. See, I think the ending is mixed for me. I don't. I feel like at the end of the movie, we get told kind of what happens to these characters through like a radio broadcast, you know, which is ingenious. When I was watching it, I was like, I'm kind of looking forward to the end where we get the text and the picture of the real person, just to see how they ended up, because I love like ends of stories, you know, and the fact that didn't go that route is just another, you know, huge thumbs up. And remind me after I finish this point to come back to that, because there's something else that I want to touch upon about the ending. But I mean, they are hardly in prison at all. They both get released after, 5-6 years. Both have lives after it. It doesn't seem to affect them that much. Whereas Molly, her diabetes kills her, 7 years after this? 7 years after this? Like, not long at all. And I know that as a, religious, someone that has made a lot of films about religion, we're all equal under the eye of God. It's kind of, to me, the feeling I got at the end was, even in death, we're not equal. Nobody, they didn't get what they deserved.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying. This person has been through so much pain, lost so many people, still leaves this earth before the others in pain. And I don't know whether that's just because I wanted her to, live happily ever after, and you don't feel like you did and the others did,
Yeah. I
don't know. And I don't know. I mean, she did marry again, Molly, so I assume that the remaining years were, happy and better. Couldn't have been much worse, but better than they would have been with Ernest. But, it felt very damning as a whole. You know, question of what, with this one nation under God, we're not, this isn't correct at all.
Yeah. Well, it said, do they mention, I think that she was able to get all of her rights back as far as like the land and her wealth and stuff, I think.
Yeah, I assume that she would, because it's all in her name.
Yeah.
Which is great, obviously. But the amount that she had to do to gain that is unlike what any white person depicted in the film had to do. You have to lose family members and, basically go to the pearly gates and back.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. But I think the point I wanted to make earlier about the ending is when Scorsese comes out and does the monologue at the end and kind of closes the film, it reminded me of Schindler's List. When at the end of Schindler's List, Spielberg does.
I actually haven't seen it.
Oh,
so you're about to spoil it.
It might be a bit spoilery. It's not related to the plot. I'll say that. So at the end, they're at a memorial, and it's Spielberg and the cast, and they have Holocaust survivors, potentially the people that Schindler saved, I think.
Okay, yeah.
And they kind of come and pay respect to Schindler's grave. I think it's been a while since I've seen it. It might be like a memorial as opposed to Schindler's grave, but it's something. But it's like the film kind of bleeds into this real life image of them doing it, and that's what it reminded me of. And I think it was supposed to, because the Holocaust was a genocide. It was picking off a group of people and making them the scapegoat, and this was exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
And I think that parallel works really well. And you kind of, even though it's on a smaller scale than the Holocaust, it's it's still the same. And we always talk about like the atrocities of it, which it is. That made it sound like I wasn't believing it. It's awful. but we don't ever mention this, and
Yeah.
we should.
Yeah.
You know, this is what we should be talking about it.
Yeah.
The other point that you brought up that I want to mention is obviously the length of the film. I've seen a few people talk about it as if it has been made for like TV, in terms of you can kind of, you can come and pause it and watch a
Right.
bit. It's not made for the cinematic experience. And I want to get your opinion on it because I disagree.
Yeah, of course I disagree. I think
Yeah.
if you can't sit in a movie theater and watch this, then why are you watching it?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Like, but
The thing I think about when I watch is, what would I cut?
yeah,
If I
exactly.
thought, if this film was too long, what would I cut? And
Yeah.
at the end of it, I couldn't think of like anything that I'd be happy to lose that. Everything I feel like delivered something to one of the characters or to the story or just to the feeling of it.
Yeah.
Scorsese is really good at taking us in with different characters, and kind of we spend some time with them and then we go back. But it just adds to the tapestry of it. It's all, if it was just, Leonardo is pretty much on screen every minute.
Yeah.
But if it was, just him, it wouldn't be the same. I like that we follow some of the other people that he comes in contact with, some of the seedy underbelly and stuff like that. It's interesting. It adds to the film.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't have any problem with the runtime. I'd happily go and see it in the cinema again. I'm not, opposed to it at all.
Yeah. I think, the one scene where I was like getting really annoyed was the interrogation. And
Yeah.
I think I was just sick of the character. But I think that's,
You're supposed
that's
to,
a
you're
part of
supposed
the
to feel-
experience, Think
Yeah.
about why.
Where I
And-
feel like the interrogation scenes were kind of nail biting because you were like, will someone please just go and check on Molly? Like,
yeah.
I just need, I want to know that she's okay, because she's pretty much on death's door when he gets arrested.
Uh-huh.
And he just leaves, and then it's maybe 30 minutes and we don't see her for a while. And I was just like, I just need to, as a viewer, I'm so invested, I just need to know that she's okay.
Yeah.
That she's fine. So, I think it is meant to make you kind of frustrated that, he's being interrogated and stuff, that we're staying on that scene.
Yeah. Did how was the theater full when you went? Like, was it?
It wasn't packed. There was
Yeah.
there was more in than normal, I would say.
Mm.
We've been going quite regularly. We've been going to see a lot of kids' films recently because my daughter's out of school, but
Yeah.
it's never full. And it was more, the only other film that I've been to see where it was kind of as full was Oppenheimer.
Okay.
So, but this was opening night. So I'd
Yeah.
expect, I was hoping it was going to be sold out, but there was no way.
What was the audience's reaction? Like, what was the vibe in there?
So English audiences are very different to American audiences.
Okay.
They're very quiet.
Gotcha. So nothing.
Yeah, so it was very kind of like bland
Yeah.
and like just silence, and then the lights came up and people kind of just got up and left.
Yeah.
Which I would say is probably part of the film, but I just know it's the English audience. There's not, much clapping or whooping, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Not that you would clap and whoop in this film, but
No.
yeah, it was very subdued, and I think it is a very American story.
For sure. Yeah.
Not that, as someone that's kind of lived in America for the last 8 years, there's a lot of things in there that, you really worry about. Not to keep bringing Trump into it, but I think with the Trump presidency, you started to see people that were really close to you in a different light. And this is kind of the same, like, can you find the wolves in this picture? Like, who is like hiding their true colors?
Yeah.
And it's that kind of vibe, that kind of thing that I really like held on to, is you just really don't know what anyone is doing. There's just unrest in the whole thing. As soon as you start to know that people are being killed, all of them look like suspects.
Yeah.
None of them seem believable or like a good person Like even the husband, that is it. Oh, I don't know who plays him, but he marries one sister and then she dies, and then he marries another. You know, even him, there's a point where you're like, oh, he's twigged, he's got onto it, and then he's still like beating his wives up.
Mm.
You know, there's still no one is like good
Yeah.
person, apart from probably Jesse Plemons,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I was waiting so long to see Jesse Plemons.
Yeah.
I was like, when are we going to see the man?
The legend.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Do you know who's not awesome in this film?
No.
Brendan Fraser.
You didn't like him?
No.
Really?
Yeah. I feel like he comes in like, I know that he's supposed to be like this big lawyer,
Yeah.
but it's like everyone else is playing in a very like high suspense kind of film, and he's just like a stage actor trying to get his voice to carry to the back seat. He just comes out and he's like, I want an object. And it's like, who, what are you doing?
He's making his presence known.
I guess. I think it doesn't help that John Lithgow is like the defense attorney or the prosecutor. I guess it's the prosecutor. And he's so good at being like quiet
Yeah.
and, you know,
And you know
I know.
he can be
commanding. Yes, exactly. And commanding. He's so, and then like Brendan Fraser comes in and it's like, oh no, turn it down.
loud. Stupid boy.
Yes.
Says something
yeah.
like that.
Mm-hmm. And I was like, nope, not feeling that.
I didn't mind it. I thought it was
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. It's like,
I
only
hesitate
hate
to
this
use the
man.
word funny because I feel like you can't really laugh in this movie.
No.
But that was one thing I was going to say is like in the theater I was in, it was also not packed, but the last like hour to 30 minutes to an hour of the movie, there was a lady in the back just like cracking up the whole time. And I was like,
Oh.
what are you laughing at, lady?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think I mean, she was laughing at like the ridiculousness of the characters, which I
Mhm.
get to some degree, but it's like in the context of this movie, I don't think.
No. We're not supposed to be laughing at them.
Yeah, there's lots of movies like that where the characters are just buffoons and they're being stupid, but then
Yeah.
but like what they're being stupid about is murdering all these people, and it's like
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. There's complexities to it. I don't, you know, DiCaprio's Ernest is not like, you know, stumbling, can't put clothes on properly, you know, hick. He is complicit to it. He's not being controlled, but just how much he knows that he's doing is kind of like, is teased to us.
Yeah.
You know, there's the big question at the end of like, did you know you were poisoning me? And he takes like a long time to answer, and he says no. And you, at the time, you're like, oh, he's lying. But the more you think about it, the more you're like, is he just processing what he's heard? Like, is he just like, I didn't even know you were being poisoned? You know, where would that, would it have been the injections? No, I didn't know. You know, there's so much to it that is left unsaid, you know, and that spurs podcasts like this, where we have to talk about it. We have to kind of, you know, look at it from different directions. And that's why Scorsese is the king. He does it so easily. It's effortless.
Yeah, I mean the way that King describes it to him when he's like, you got to add this to her medicine. He's like, it's just going to slow her down, you know? And he's like, yeah, slow her down. All right.
Yeah.
You know.
But does he think that...
Does he think that's true, or...
Yeah. Is he, like, literally thinking that the injections are helping and that will just, like, calm her down? You know. There's so much complexity to it. And I think that's what's beautiful is that we're so used to doing films of people doing things because they have a reason. Whereas in life, people do things all the time for no reason. And it's not like, I'm doing this because X, Y, and Z happened. You know, and this film is kind of similar to it. There's no... I mean, there is a reason why they're killing them off, but it's like for Ernest, it's like, is he doing it just to get the money, or is he like doing two things at once? Does he really love Molly, but he's also helping to kill her? You know, we don't get the answer,
Yeah.
which I like. I like, ambiguity, but having the clues there. Not that what the hell was that, but more like everything's there. We've just got to make our own assumption. And like you said, if the reason for Scorsese making this film is because Molly and Ernest loved each other, then you have to side on the that he didn't know he was killing her.
Yeah.
Right? That's what you would think.
Yeah.
Because most of the trial is around the deaths that happened. It's not around Molly's illness. So we don't get any exposition for that. We just know that he was making sure that her sisters were killed.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and we never know what he is actually putting in her thing either.
Yeah, who knows? Because we know that. That's the other thing. We see the doctors, how terrible that they are.
Yeah.
About reporting things and stuff. So it's like, were they just under King's control doing it, and Ernest didn't know what was in it? Or are we just thinking that because Ernest is a white man and that's who we associate with, and we're trying to see him as a scapegoat as opposed to a villain?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or is he just stupid?
Yeah. Is he just an idiot?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an incredible movie. And I think that if you go into it with an open mind and really kind of just let it wash over you, you're going to get so much out of it.
Yeah.
It's not a sit back, relax, switch off film. It's a very kind of, you need to keep your wits about you. But these are the films that we live for, These are the films that you go to the cinema for, to be questioned and have uncomfortable moments where you're like, who am I associating myself with right now?
Yeah.
Like, who in these characters do I see myself in, And it's not a nice answer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Whew, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's interesting. Especially someone that loves, classic cinema and classic Hollywood as much as Scorsese, to make a film like this when every Western, ever made, the natives, the Native Americans are the enemy. You think of The Searchers, one of the greatest Westerns of all time, and John Wayne hates them so much. He is literally shooting their eyes out so they have to wander for eternity without making it to heaven. He hates them so much. And that's kind of that's the picture that's always been painted for us through films.
Yeah.
Is that they're the enemy. And they're definitely not.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is such
so crazy. Well, it's crazy. That's also a perfect illustration of us as American white people being earnest, being complicit the entire time, because we also got brainwashed.
Yeah.
Throughout history, and being told that cowboys versus Indians, and that these people were savages, and that we didn't just come over here and kill everyone and take their land and give them diseases and commit genocide, mass genocide, an entire continent of people.
Yeah. And up until now, it's a story that isn't readily being told. It's not something that other films that I can think of off the top of my head really deal with.
Yeah. Well, no one wants to talk about it either.
No.
And the fact that Scorsese, this film, I don't know if it would have worked if Scorsese wasn't behind it, because he's got a lot of bro followers too.
He does, yeah.
Who maybe wouldn't consider these questions without him making it himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, super. It's just gonna be thinking about it a lot, and yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I think that for me, it was more immediate than The Irishman. I did really like The Irishman, and thought it was just such a, again, a staggering piece of cinema. But I came out of this and I was just like, wow, that's not only taught me something that I didn't know, but it's made me want to know more and kind of, see, like, just know more about what happened and who these people were and what we could do to better it. How can we improve and get better and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So it's not easy.
Yep. Well, did you see Foggy?
No, I didn't see Foggy.
Eldon Henson. He's in he doesn't have any speaking lines. He's just one of the husbands in the background in a couple of shots.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Foggy.
Yeah.
I feel like, I mean, he's a working actor. He's been around for 30 plus years. It's just, I think Scorsese is just it's Scorsese. Even if you had a leading role, even if you were a leading man, I would be like, I want to be in the background, please.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, whatever. I'll just do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and then Lily Gladstone is awesome.
Yes, she is. I don't think we've spoken about her enough. It's just a joy whenever she's on the screen. She's so, I don't know, calm and commanding at the same time. There's this phonetic energy around Leonardo DiCaprio's Ernest. He's always kind of a little bit guffawing, and he's a bit goofy.
Yeah.
And she's just so calm and, matter of fact, and when she cries, it, breaks us as the audience.
Yeah, and she just has so much emotion.
Yeah.
In her subtle expressions, saying so much with the subtleties. Whereas DiCaprio is the opposite.
Yeah.
I mean, he's saying, not that he's saying nothing, he's saying a lot too, but he's very much more expressive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And apparently that the laugh, one of the first scenes when he's driving her and he's
I don't know what you said, but it must have been native handsome devil. Or
yeah.
Yeah,
that was improv, and that laugh was genuine. And that kind of was early on in the shoot, so it kind of helped to start building their bond.
I know they did a lot of work around, it was just kind of Scorsese, DiCaprio, and Gladstone kind of working together on the relationship a lot. And I've read something that De Niro said that Leonardo kept kind of trying to improvise in scenes, and there was a point where they were just just stop, just read it as it is on the page. It doesn't get any better.
Say your lines, please.
Yeah.
Boy. Have you ever seen This Boy's Life?
I haven't.
Me either. The end.
Yeah, great.
That was their first time working together, apparently, when DiCaprio was a little boy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And De Niro was the one that was like, you should work with this kid named DiCaprio. Mr. Scorsese. No, he didn't call him Mr. Scorsese. He calls him Marty. Yeah.
To be on
Marty
first name
calls
terms.
Marty calls him Bob.
Bob, yeah.
Well, until the next time we talk about this movie, I feel like this might be one we come back to.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I'm pretty sure you rated this 5 out of 5.
Yes, and I'm pretty sure you rated this 4.5 out of 5.
Because you saw my letterbox.
Yeah, we saw each other's letterbox. Yeah.
So dirty.
The least climactic end to an episode ever.
I feel like I should give it 5 out of 5, but I'm gonna watch it again.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I think sometimes it does take time, doesn't it, to let these films kind of hit,
yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
I think that with it coming to streaming, a lot more people are going to see it and kind of see it again and again and again. But I really want to try and see it in the cinema one more time before it does, just to be kind of engrossed in it.
Yeah.
That's the plan.
Cool. Well, what do you want to watch next week? Next Sunday?
Yeah, next Sunday. I wanted to pick this earlier, but with us doing the Danish Horror Month, it didn't really fit, and I didn't want to, kind of break away from what we were doing. But with the passing of William Friedkin, the director of The Exorcist, I've been reading a lot and listening a lot about him.
Yeah.
And a lot of what people are talking about is kind of not The Exorcist. And they've been mentioning one film quite a lot, which I've picked, and that is Sorcerer from 1977, directed by William Friedkin, and that is what we're going to be watching for next week.
Sweet. Well, that's exciting.
Yeah.
That was after The Exorcist?
I don't know.
Cool.
Tune in next week to find out.
Yeah, we'll find out. Cool. I've seen another film of his recently because my sister found it on VHS.
Oh, nice.
Gosh, what is it? The Night They Raided Minsky's.
Okay, cool.
From
I don't think I've ever heard of that.
1968. It's pretty great.
Yeah.
Cool.
Sweet.
Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Yeah, that'll be next week.
All right. Well, I think that brings us to the end of the show. Keep the conversation going by finding us on Twitter, Instagram, at Film Church Radio. You can also follow us individually on our Letterboxd accounts. I'm at Somascope. Lewis is at Walker Lewis 3007, and Martin Scorsese is at M Scorsese. I'm sure you gave him a follow.
Yeah. Yes.
We also have all of our back episodes streaming, all 101 on all good podcast platforms. Please leave us a rating and review so we know if you liked the film. And if you didn't, what the heck do you want us to watch? Thank you for being here. We hope to see you next Sunday for more Film Church Radio. The only thing left to say is, this is supposed to be a suicide. You dumb bell. You didn't tell him to leave the gun?
I don't know why. I told him to leave the gun. I told him.
Told him to leave the gun.
Just like you told me, King. I don't know why you didn't. I don't know why. I told him just like you told me.
You told him to do it in the front of the head. Then why did he do it in the back of the head? It's so simple. The front is the front. The back is the back. The back is the back.
The front is the front. This is the back of the episode.
That's right. Barbie's back. All right, I'll see you next Sunday. Amen.
Amen.